You're listening to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast, a show where a philosopher and a rocket scientist try to make sense of the Cleveland Browns. The Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science podcast is a part of the Fanatical Elves Podcast Network, a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Elliot Kennel and Joel Cade.
Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm Elliot, and he's Joel, Dr.
Howdy.
Joel Cade, philosophy professor. And Joel, what do you know about the training camp schedule this season?
So it is happening, people. Training camp is on its way. It is happening. So get all the memes out from the office, all that stuff you need to. It is happening today. Yes, today. Rookies are reporting for training camp. And in 2 days, the 21st, I just lost all my dates. There we go. The 21st, the veterans report for training camp. And then come July 22nd, which I believe is Saturday. Does that sound right? The Browns will be going to the Greenbrier in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia from the 22nd through the 30th for 8 days for phase 1 of training camp to prep for the Hall of Fame game against the Jets on August 3rd. And then, nice. And 8-1, they return to Cleveland. That's before the game. On August 1st, they return back to Cleveland for phase 2 of training camp in Berea. So they go to Greenbrier for 8 days. They come back. They got a couple days. They got the game. And then full-on training camp, just like every other team, heading into the supposed real week 1 of training of preseason games. So they're happening. They're coming back to camp. Everything's starting to happen. It's a good time. Football is back, hopefully sometime soon. 8-3 be back in about, I don't know, 14, 15 days.
I don't know if it's going to be the same for me now, Joel.
And why is that?
I heard some very distressing news that, brace yourself. I heard that the Perrion Winfrey era in Cleveland may be over.
Shocker. What have you heard, Elliot?
Yeah, I heard that Perrion Winfrey is no longer a Cleveland Brown. It's possible that he might be signed by another NFL team. He's a free agent. He might wind up on the St. Louis Battlehawks. Who knows where he might wind up, but he's not a Cleveland Brown. There is an incident on Twitter. We thought about even putting it on our show, though we thought there are so many curse words present that we might not be acceptable to YouTube and some of the other social media, and we just couldn't risk it. It was not good. It was not good.
Let me explain the video for everybody out there.
Why don't we just
So if you go on Twitter, you can go to and find, just look up Perrion Winfrey, you can find the video. It looks like to be a TikTok video of someone claiming to be Ohio's hottest white girl. And it's her kind of holding her phone, recording. So you get a lot of weird angles. And you can hear someone in the background with a lot of curse words, a lot of threats. Clearly something bad is happening here. The text on the video claims that it's Perrion Winfrey, that he's brandishing a gun, that she is running from him with a gun. And the text on the video claims that Perrion Winfrey stole her phone, that she's afraid to go home. And then there's a shot of her neck with bruises on it, asking, is this what the Cleveland Browns stand for? So
yes. Now, these are all unsubstantiated allegations. Let us be clear about that.
Yes, that is where we're at.
We are not endorsing these or saying that we know these to be factual, but the allegations have been made and they are on social media.
Correct. So we do not know if this was actually Ohio's hottest white
we
girl
weren't
or not.
there, but we don't know that either, and that is subjective in any case. But Perrion Winfrey has been in trouble before, and he has been in hot water, let us say, with some of the veterans who did not approve of his practice ethic. and he's been talked to by some of the senior members, including Myles Garrett. And I really don't understand why he is such a good politician that he's been able to keep his place on the team for this long. I don't think he's
barks well.
He's a good player. He's got talent, but I don't think he's got so much talent that he can afford to spend this much, how shall I say, creative capital and remain on the team. I don't want to judge him, and I don't know what sort of personal difficulties he may be facing that has caused these kind of problems to arise, and I hope he's able to overcome them. But I think that football may be a luxury that he cannot afford at this time. It's maybe a good thing to step back and get things in order before attending to privilege and a luxury to play in the NFL. I don't know that that's a good thing for him.
I would agree. I mean, Perrion Winfrey's had his run-ins, right? He had issues at practice. He had the time where he allegedly ran into a tree with his scooter. Turns out that might have been him losing control of his car in snow.
No, I think it was the tree actually ran into his scooter.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't his fault.
Yeah. Tree ran into a scooter. So this isn't, like you said, the first time he's been in trouble. I'll take a different place on this. Perrion Winfrey is not the most refined schematic player or technical player. And Jim Schwartz is going to want some schematic technical players, right? That defensive line is going to require some real technique to be effective. And Winfrey is just kind of one of those, kind of like how he seems to be in life. You just line him up and unleash him and let him do his thing. And that seems to be the way he does things.
I don't like that at all. I'm kind of old school. Marty Schottenheimer disciple. I believe that erratic players may look spectacular on the field, but they eventually get you fired. If you're a coach, you can't depend upon those kind of players to carry out your game plan or your plays. Not a fan of that style of play.
Well, Myles Garrett hasn't got anybody fired yet, and that's the way he plays. I just think Winfrey right here just I'm not sure.
Myles Garrett does not play like Perrion Winfrey. I'm sorry.
Well, Myles Garrett plays at an elevated level, but he still just goes out and does his thing. This is not a Myles Garrett piece. We can get on him later. Perrion Winfrey, though, that's kind of been his style. I don't know how well he was going to adapt to Jim Schwartz's scheme. I wasn't thinking he was going to make the team anyway, given his history of issues, and he's going to be behind the curve when it comes to like learning the technique of defensive tackle he's going to have to play, as were people like Tommy Togiai and Jordan Elliott. Those two people are going to be really ahead of the curve. So, Togiai, this will be his chance. This is what he does. But I already thought Winfrey was the odd man out. So for him to go out and get himself in trouble, this is just the no-brainer response. Like, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't have room for this.
Yeah. Yeah. We've given him too much airtime already, but all
right. Well, hey, let's take our break. So
let's do that.
After the break, stick around. We're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals offense.
Yes, we promised we would do so.
And we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals salary cap and how Elliot and I
what are the Bengals doing?
Yeah, we can't make any sense of this. So hang on after the break, and we'll get right into the Bengals. And we're back. Thanks for hanging on. So, Elliot, we're going to preview the Cincinnati Bengals offense. And, the Bengals have a tremendous offense. That seems to be the strength of their team, particularly with Joe Burrow. It's hard to believe that Zach Taylor comes from the same coaching tree that has produced Kevin Stefanski with that same outside zone scheme. But once you have a quarterback, you don't have to run outside zone.
Coaching tree, I don't know. I mean, if you believe in the theory of evolution, we're on the same evolutionary tree as Australopithecus. So I'm not sure I really buy into that all that much.
Okay.
But I want to know, do the Bengals intend to win this year, or what exactly are they doing? Because they have plenty of cap space and they're not really using it. They should be doing what the Browns are doing and stockpiling all kinds of great players, but they're not really doing that. I just really think it's kind of remarkable who they have not signed. To me, it's unbelievable who the Browns have signed, and it's unbelievable who the Bengals, with their winner's discount, have not signed. I really can't understand it, but we can go into that in detail. Let's take a look at that, as a matter of fact, those who have visual with us, and we'll describe it for those who do not. But okay, who they have lost players on defense. We talked about that on a previous show, that they lost their entire defensive backfield. They're not going to play pass defense this year.
Mm-hmm.
But on offense, okay, they didn't take huge hits. They preserve their receiving core, and they add to their offensive line. They get big Orlando Brown, and a tackle that they really needed because they had injuries on the offensive line. But they also lose 2 tight ends, and they didn't really replace them. They lose Hayden Hurst, who you might remember from Baltimore. He gets a deal. And we don't. We're not real sure what Baltimore is doing either. And we're Browns centric, no doubt about it. But trying to be objective, we still don't really understand what the Bengals are doing. So they lose a starting tight end, and also this guy Mitchell Wilcox has not been signed yet. And I'm not sure if there was an injury issue or what. But he played 45% of the offensive snaps last season, had 139 yards receiving. So that tells you he's mainly a blocker, but, he's a serviceable tight end. They also lost their number 2 running back in Samaje Perine. A lot of people thought, he's kind of, maybe a number 1B running back. 1A is Joe Mixon, of course, but Samaje Perine is a pretty good running back. And he's gone, and they didn't really replace him either, unless they got a steal in the draft, which they might have. So who do they get to replace these guys? They get a definite starter, Orlando Brown, the son of Zeus. They get tight end Irv Smith, who's not in the same caliber as Hayden Hurst, I don't believe.
Oh, he's more replacing Mitchell Wilcox. Irv Smith is a blocking wide receiver, blocking tight end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the draft, they get some very interesting guys. And by the way, one thing that's weird is all 3 of these guys ran exactly 4.43 in the 40-yard dash, for those who like numbers. They get Charlie Jones from Purdue, who had 1,361 receiving yards and runs a 4.43. And so that's pretty good for, Purdue. We like that. Reasonable Big Ten school, yeah.
Yep.
Chase Brown, a running back, had 1,883 total yards from scrimmage, 5.0 yards per carry on the ground. That's pretty good. We like that. So we think maybe Chase Brown might be able to evolve into a Samaje Perine type running back. So that's
or a third down back. The receiver guy out of the backfield.
He didn't really have. He did have a fair amount of receiving yards, but maybe in the pros he'll be doing more of that than he did in college. And then they also took kind of a long shot from Princeton University. That's, of course, the same university that our general manager comes from. So why did the Browns take him? But anyway, Andre Iosivas, I hope I pronounced that halfway correctly. He had less than 1,000 yards receiving, but he runs a 4.43. What the heck? Maybe he's a talent. He had nobody throwing to him, obviously, since it was in the Ivy Leagues.
This guy sounds like a practice squad guy to me, but
anyway. Well, I don't know. Probably you might be able to take a guy like that and clear him through waivers, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But they seem to like him, and they don't have anybody backing up at wide receiver once you get past their big 3 guys. So, but they did not add a lot of talent. They really did not. So
let me talk about this for a second, Elliot. Let's go back to the previous screen.
let's go back to the previous screen.
Oh, yeah. You talking about offensive linemen in the next screen? Because we can talk about offensive linemen. All right, let's just go there. I want to go right to Orlando Brown.
Let's talk about Orlando Brown, because we don't really necessarily view him as the, his big beef was that he wanted to make all this money as a left tackle, and he was unhappy at Baltimore because I don't want to be a right tackle because right tackles don't make that much money. Plus, my dad was a left tackle, and I want to be like my dad. And so he's not getting that huge of a contract. There are right tackles in the NFL that are getting more money than he's getting. And right tackle is probably a better position for him. I don't necessarily believe in Orlando Brown as the pass blocking left tackle, because the guys that he has had to pass block for, Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, are very mobile guys. And so, of course, he doesn't get dinged for allowing sacks because those two guys are unsackable.
Yeah, I think for Orlando Brown, if he can get his hands on you, you're done. The trick is to not let him get his hands on you. But at that point, you have to run around the mountain.
Yeah, run around him.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think we talked about this before. Orlando Brown is like the right tackle to have. This is your mauler. He's going to fire out and run block. He's going to just own you on the right side of the line. So I don't know. I understand where Orlando Brown's coming from, because he wants paid. And I understand where the Bengals are coming from because they've had Jonah Williams out there at the left tackle, and that really hasn't worked out for him. And so I get it. I just don't think it's the greatest move that you could make with the money that you're spending. I want to talk about this Lyle Collins and Jonah Williams thing you got here on the graphic.
Yeah,
here.
They're kind of banged up. They're kind of banged up at the tackle position.
Yeah, Lyle Collins did not play well in 2022, had a torn ACL and MCL in week 16. Week 16. Yet he seems to be recovering. Then you've got Jonah Williams, and you're saying here also recovering from a knee injury, initially upset when the Bengals signed Orlando Brown and asked him to move him to right tackle. I could see a situation where Jonah Williams plays right tackle, Collins plays guard, because I think the Bengals are hurting at guard. I don't think they have a really set situation. So I can see them coming in with Orlando Brown at left tackle, Jonah Williams at right tackle. You're moving Collins to guard, which he's played in the NFL. Then you've got the center, Ted Karras, coming in from New England.
Yeah, Ted Karras is a very capable center. Absolutely.
You got Alex Kappa, but the guard after Alex Kappa is what? I'm thinking it's Lyle Collins.
Well, we don't actually know who the guard is going to be. They have a couple guys that could possibly play. Cardell Volson, Cody Ford, Jackson Carman is a guy that they had some high ratings for. I believe he was taken in the second round, and he started 2 playoff games at guard last season. Didn't have super games.
Maybe he's going to be
guard
the guard
tackle. He might wind up at guard also. But they didn't really distinguish themselves. What has happened to the Bengals 2 years in a row is that they wound up with injuries that caused them to start backups in the playoffs. And that has hurt them. So they're really paranoid about wanting to be deep in the offensive line. And so that's why they've accumulated offensive linemen. But, they're banged up once again.
I think between outside of left tackle, which I think you can call solid, good, center is going to be good. I'm just not sure what they're doing anywhere else. Williams or Collins could both be injured coming into the season. Either or both. And then guard is just kind of ho-hum.
Yeah, I think so. I think Kappa is pretty good, but they're not like the Browns with Bitonio.
Right.
They don't have 3 Pro Bowl caliber guys in the middle of their line. So yeah, I think they'd like to be deeper. They'd like to be healthier, but they're not.
To me, this says you better get rid of the ball quick, because if you're going to go back for a 5-step, you're going to have somebody in your face.
Yeah, and they do. And they do give the ball to Jamar Chase, very quickly, and he's usually double covered. But Chase is not the long bomb guy that people think that he is.
Why don't we move on to wide receivers here?
Why don't we do that? Let's talk about wide receivers.
Let's talk about running back first. Let's talk about these running backs first.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon. You realize that Joe Mixon just took almost a $5 million pay cut over the next 2 years, like $5 million this year, $5 million next year, to stay with the Bengals.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I'm not quite sure how. I haven't looked at that contract in detail, but he did take some cuts. I'm not sure if he got additional guarantees or why he did that. But yeah, so they did get some cap room this season out of Joe Mixon.
I mean, you got to get something besides cap room. I mean, last year he wasn't real good.
He wasn't fantastic, but he did. One thing that maybe is not appreciated that much is that he did get a lot of receiving yards. So he had 1,200 total yards from scrimmage in 2022, but his yards per carry average was not really that great, 3.9 yards per rush. That's kind of the Browns had from oh man, help me out there, second string guy, Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt.
So it was okay, but not really, superstar caliber.
Plus, he had some concerns on the offseason, so I think he's paying for being the Perrion Winfrey of Cincinnati.
Well, no,
at this point.
Let's not go there. But yeah, Joe Mixon has been kind of a rugged character. We can say that. Now they do need to replace Samaje Perine, who had 681 total yards from scrimmage. So he was not just a backup; he was a major part of their offense. And he actually moved the ball a little bit better than Joe, at least on paper. I don't think he was quite as big of a force up the middle, but maybe he was. Chris Evans was a guy that did not play very much last season, but in 2021, he looked like he was probably a pretty good running back and could evolve perhaps into a number one guy. He's another one of Jim Harbaugh's guys that got into his doghouse at Michigan. But, he has speed, has a size, has everything that you look for in a running back. And the thought was that, he might really actually be a real live running back. And let's keep an eye on him. He might actually have talent. And then there's the rookie Chase Brown, who did everything for the fidgeting Illini. Oh, that's a typographical error. I apologize so much.
It's so accurate, though.
I should have said Fighting Illini. Isn't that their nickname?
Yes, the Fighting Illini.
Fighting Illini. Oh, okay. I'm really sorry if there's... No, actually, I'm not even sorry. But okay, yeah, Chase Brown put up some big numbers in college in the Big Ten. What the heck? He probably can be a, NFL running back. What the heck? So until proven otherwise, I think they're probably okay. Let's not say that he's going to be a star, but he can probably start for the Bengals if it comes down to that. Mm-hmm. And rookie running backs tend to be guys that can have success as rookies. That's not quite as true for wide receivers.
Did you see all that controversy, all these running backs coming out and getting mad at Matt Miller?
No, did you see that? What did Matt do?
So he came out with a tweet saying that the way you handle running backs, so you draft a running back, play a running back. If the running back is good, you give him what's the word I'm looking for? The franchise tag for 1 year, and then you draft a new running back. And like Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, the guy over at Indianapolis.
Yeah.
There's another one came out. Austin Eckler all came out complaining. This is why running backs don't get paid. People don't appreciate running backs. You got to have a good running back if you're going to have a good football team, but nobody wants to pay us, blah, blah, blah. You haven't seen this? I was kind of hoping to get your reaction to it.
Actually, I heard a little bit of a debate on that issue from Greenberg on the radio today. I was out and about during the time, and he kind of described that. He was in favor of Saquon Barkley's case, but I personally do believe that the NFL is going through a phase where they do undervalue running backs. I would hire them. And I think that, but I do think that they don't quite get it. The general managers say that, okay, they're only good for 4 years. Well, so pay them for 4 years. They should be drafted in the first round. Whether or not you give them a huge second contract, I think is up in the air. I think what it does speak to is that you should give them maybe a shorter number of guaranteed years, but you should still pay them. So like Barkley might deserve, let's say, a 3-year contract with the first 2 years guaranteed, and still get paid at a high level. I think he would perhaps deserve that. And then there's a separate issue that the franchise system that they have makes absolutely no sense. It's punitive to the player. It's arbitrary. It does give the Giants the right to punish Saquon Barkley for no reason. And if it was on the, anything involving the free market, Saquon Barkley would get twice as much money. If there were any way that any other team could match what the Giants have paid him, they would. So it is not free market. It's, a form of
indentured servitude,
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
He is worth more than that. But I do think that the NFL is stupid to let these highly talented, productive players last until the 4th and 5th round. Is ridiculous.
I think the other side on this with running backs is that
draft
you're overusing them, or they wear out after 5 years. Well, they should maybe do what the Browns do with Nick Chubb and just limit his amount of carries so that you don't wear him out.
Draft 2 of them.
Or you don't wear him out after his first contract.
Both.
Yep.
I
don't know. I just thought it was interesting. We're talking about running backs and Joe Mixon taking a pay cut. It's interesting that running backs are out there screaming they should get paid, and analytics will tell you that running the football is basically a loss no matter what you do, or some analytics depends on
Yeah, not my analytics.
Some analytics say these things.
A lot of this time is, well, what you should do is throw the ball to running backs. That's what you should do. And, they don't do enough screen passes, according to me. But running backs are still very, very valuable players. And perhaps what you should be doing is signing them to shorter contracts, perhaps, than a quarterback.
I just think you need to use them more intelligently. Yeah, you just can't. I mean, I think it's dumb to draft a guy, run the crap out of him for 5 years, and then just cut him, which is what's happening, right? You're just running the guy into the ground and then cutting him instead of saying, hey, why don't we protect this player that we have because we like him, like the Browns have done with Nick Chubb. But then you've got the Browns Twitter base, like, he has to have 20 carries a game. Well, if you do that, he's going to be done after 4 years. So why don't we just give him 15 carries a game and let him play for 6 years?
Yeah.
Anyway, now we're digressing.
I'll tell you what. I'm kind of a scientist, engineer type. If it was a machine, you wouldn't run the machine like that because you'd wear it out and not get optimum use out of it. Don't run them. It's like you're going to have a car and you're going to mash the accelerator pedal all the way to the metal. No, you're not. Drive it intelligently. Come on. Okay. All right. So
wide receivers.
Wide receivers.
About wide receivers. This is what I was getting at earlier. Like, if you're going to not invest in your offensive line and you're not going to invest in your running back position, okay, then you better have good wide receivers, because if not, you've just eliminated all the people who are going to block for your quarterback.
Well,
So you better
they did invest in their offensive line
All
to
right,
the
all right.
extent that they could. They have
They
some.
got Orlando Brown, but they didn't take care of, I think,
They
everything.
may not have done it in the most intelligent way,
Okay.
but they do have. I think that they did get a running back that can replace Pirine. So I do think that they're okay there.
Can he pass
The
well?
wide receiver position, they didn't lose anybody at wide receiver, and they're adding an impressive rookie, I think. But they really want to play just these three guys if they can. They've done that for like 2 or 3 years in a row.
It also looks like they're trying to get faster, which I agree with.
Mm.
Like as an overall strategy, I'm not saying this is a Bengals or Browns fan. I'm just saying as an overall strategy, you want to be fast.
Yeah.
Fast.
Fast.
So
but look at the numbers for T. Higgins. First, he's 1,000 yards, 9.4 yards per target for Higgins, 9.3 yards per target for the number 3 guy, Tyler Boyd. Those are big-ass numbers. Jamar Chase was actually, I didn't put his number, but it's something like 7 yards per target for Jamar Chase. He was actually the short yardage guy last season. I think a lot of it had to do with double coverage.
And he's quick off the ball. That's his strength is his quickness at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
That allows you to get open early, and therefore you're the short guy.
Yes. So that was a fact. People think that he was the mad bomber. Not so. Not actually so. And what's more important maybe is that they really lost some quality tight ends. Hayden Hurst, you might argue, well, Hayden was coming, on the downside of his career, perhaps, but they're not really replacing Hayden Hurst plus Mitchell Wilcox with one guy, Irv Smith. Maybe Irv Smith, as you suggested earlier, is kind of the equivalent of Mitchell Wilcox.
Mm-hmm. That's what he was in Minnesota.
They used to be a 2 tight end team.
Yeah, and this is what I was kind of getting at earlier. The Browns used to be a big time two tight end team. I don't think they're going to be that this year either. Once you get a quarterback, you don't have to run that outside zone scheme, because that outside zone scheme, part of what it's about is the ability to reduce the impact of the quarterback or bad quarterback play on your team. If you have a quarterback that can elevate, which the Bengals think that they do, then you don't need to have people in there blocking all the time. What you need are people, or running the football as much. What you need are people who can get open. Hence, they're pushing toward wide receivers.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. But it looks to me like they might be wanting to do 4 wide receiver type.
I would agree with that.
They certainly don't look like they want to be running 2 tight ends to set up Joe Mixon like they used to. I don't see
Correct.
that.
There's no need for that. You've got Joe Burrow. Let him throw the ball.
Yeah, you got Joe Burrow throwing the ball, and you just don't have the tight ends. So I think that's sort of out the window. And by the way, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, of course, is Brian Callahan, who's the son of our offensive line coach. And so there's a little bit of
Zach Taylor also, he I know you're not a big fan of coaching trees, but he comes from that whole scheme of outside zone scheme, and that's what he was when he showed up in Cincinnati. That's what he was going to bring to the situation. So I think Zach Taylor is very involved in that offense. I don't know if Callahan's. I mean, he may be like the Alex Van Pelt offensive coordinator of Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think they probably think alike to some extent. They're able to function in offenses that don't have good quarterbacks, but now that they have good quarterbacks, they will be running different offenses. Would that be
exactly? That's yes. I think the outside zone offense is there to keep a team viable when they do not have elevated quarterback play.
Yeah, and in fact, we might, we talked about Saquon Barkley a little bit before. I think that's exactly what you saw with the New York Giants, is that they ran an offense that did not have a good quarterback with Daniel Jones, and it worked just fine. I'd like to see them run that offense without Saquon Barkley and see how great Daniel Jones actually is. I think it would be problematic to. I don't think they're going to score a lot of points without Saquon Barkley. I just don't. If Saquon Barkley decides that he's not going to be available for some reason or another.
Well, at least that's not our problem in Cleveland, right?
No, but we've had offenses like that where we've and we have not had great quarterbacks. And my point has been is that, look, if you don't have a great quarterback, that doesn't mean you have to quit and go home. It just means that you have to play a different style of ball. Mm-hmm. And if you have a great defense, and the Browns have not always had that great defense, but if you do have a great defense, you can, in fact, win without that fantastic quarterback. And if you don't believe me, ask Trent Dilfer, and he will tell you that, yes, you can win the Super Bowl without a fantastic quarterback. It is possible. It's not the best way to win, but it is possible.
So, Elliot, I see we got the graphic back up. Are we done with the graphic?
Yeah, I think we can be done with that.
All right. I wanted to get into what you and I were chatting at before we started this, and that's the Bengals cap situation. We were looking at this.
What are the Bengals doing? Do they want to win, or what is going on with them?
So for the listeners here, the Bengals cap, from what I saw at their current situation with however many players they have right now, looks at like $19 million in cap space. Okay, you cut that off, you're thinking, Elliot, you're the numbers guy, that they may have something like 35 to 40 million in cap space.
Yeah, let me explain some things that I've heard that are just mind-bogglingly stupid. Some people are saying that, the Bengals aren't going to have any cap space this year because they got to pay Joe Burrow. No, that is totally wrong. If they sign Joe Burrow to a contract, that extension is going to take place in like year 6 and 7. Okay, the Burrow is not getting to charge extra money in his year 4, year 5, and those years are automatic. The extension kicks in really in year 7. Year 6 is a little bit bigger, but really the big money, the $50 million or 60 or however much it is going to be like in year 7. Okay, right now he's in year 4. Okay, that's 3 years in the future. So that's not going to affect their cap situation immediately. They have the ability, if they want to, they could go out and sign a $40 million worth of players. But I think what they're thinking to themselves is, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to try to win the Super Bowl this year. We're going to try to be as good as possible every year. We're not going to overinvest in 2023 and find ourselves short of money in 2024, 2025, or 2026. Now, that is not the approach that the Browns are taking. The Browns, let's be real, they're saying that, we're going to spend money now, and we realize that we're piling up some major obligations for the future years, but we're going to take a shot at winning a Super Bowl. We want to win the Super Bowl. We're taking a shot. We'd rather take a shot to actually win the thing and have to blow the team up 3 or 4 years down the road. But we don't want to just be so-so. We really want to take a shot to win it all. And
that's what the Bengals should be doing, right? You've got Burrow on a rookie contract. That, by definition, is your Super Bowl window.
Well, they want Joe Burrow to play his entire career in Cincinnati, and so they don't ever want to have a situation where they have a bad year for him. Okay, they want to be like the New England Patriots and never ever have a bad year. So they're saving.
I get that.
Saving their pennies now so that they can afford to have players. Keep T. Higgins for as long as they can, and keep all these guys and pay them 3 years from now. they are saving cap money now so that they can have a good team 3 years from now.
So what you're talking about is they're going to take this extra cap space, roll it over to the next cap, like the Browns used to do, right?
Right.
So that you have all this extra cap space next year
Okay.
that you've rolled over. That's what you're
talking
about.
Let me tell you what's wrong with that. Let me tell you what's wrong with that. Okay. And here unfortunately, we have to mix a little bit of politics and world economics with sports. It's unfortunate, but it's true. The problem is that it really looks like there's going to be inflation and a growing salary cap for the next several years. Like the NFL salary cap is not going to be constant year after year, like it kind of was growing at like 5% a year after year. It was, it was like money in the bank. But now it looks like it's going up by 10% per year, and that depending on how much faith you have in your Congress, it might go up by 15%, 20%. And so that a lot of this money that you think you're saving now is going to be worth much less in the future than you believe. And
right. So for our non-economic major listeners, basically what he's saying is $19 million this year, and what its buying power is in 2023 is probably not going to be what $19 million can purchase in 2024, as in 2024 can purchase less than $19 million in 2023.
That's right. And there's a certain amount of winner's discount that you get. If you win extra games, then players and their agents will want to play for your team. And that's a little bit subjective. But by winning, you do more good for yourself than just by putting money in the bank, so to speak,
right?
Salary cap. So you have a difference in a team that's run by a bunch of Ivy League accountants and computer geeks in the Browns. Versus, I don't know what the background is of the Cincinnati Bengals front office, but I know that the owner, Mike Brown, is very old school, and he probably doesn't think that deeply about what the economy is doing or how to save.
That's a nice diplomatic way of putting that.
Pardon?
That's a nice diplomatic way of putting that for Mike Brown. I'll tell you, I don't know what they're thinking, and I know that you're trying to outline for me is our long-term vision is to sustain, the Bengals, right? The Bengals long-term is attempting to make a sustained winning program that never has a down year, okay? And they want Joe Burrow to be there for the rest of his career. My question to that is, how long are you expecting Joe Burrow to play? Because with that offensive line, he's not going to be playing long.
Yeah.
You might be wanting to take some of that $19 million and purchase yourself a nice guard, maybe a right tackle that's not a question mark, that has knee injuries. I mean, you've got yourself a center. That's a good buy, right? Is Orlando Brown the best buy you could have made at left tackle? It may have been the best buy they could have made at left tackle, but you've got to get that offensive line together. I mean, being cheap there is going to get somebody hurt. And I get that you're saying, okay, let's not you, Elliot, but the Bengals are saying, let's invest in wide receivers and a quarterback, and let's just throw the ball all over the yard. That's a great concept, okay? But if you can't throw the ball as soon as you snap it, you're in trouble.
Well, yeah, it's not only that, but it's a belief in the stability of the NFL economy, and the Browns believe, I think, in an exploding NFL economy that calls for bold investment and rewards greed, basically.
Right. So that economy is going to blow, or the economy is going to be, it's going to be bullish, meaning it's going to go up.
Yes.
Because you have revenue dollars from Amazon and Thursday Night Football, from the new sports deal, the new TV deals.
You've
got the gambling. Yeah, I was going to say the gambling. So the revenue is going up. And so what the Browns are doing are saying, okay, we got the money, let's spend it.
Yeah,
right? Because it's not going
to be available.
Right,
and
we've got the money.
To invest the available money now. Don't save a bunch of money in the rollover salary cap, spend it, invest it in players, be good, get the W's. That's the best investment.
Right. So they're spending their monies to get W's. What are the Bengals spending their money on? Because they're not spending their money. They have holes.
They're saving salary cap. Is what
I don't know what they're saving it for.
Well,
it's not like they're going out and buying players at this point.
They believe that salary cap will be what they use to retain their wide receivers and their quarterback. And that's what they think.
No, see, this is where they're wrong. And this is where I think you and I might disagree, Elliot, and that's fine. But we never know. We may agree. You can structure your salary cap to kick the can down the road. Now, that's not a forever permanent solution, but you can kick the can down the road on bonuses. Sign somebody to voidable years so that the only year you have to worry about, and you're making this case beautifully, Elliot, the only year you have to worry about is the current year that you're in. Then the next year, you deal with that cap, and you make that cap work. The Saints have been doing this for almost a decade, and they've always made it work. Right? They were $30 million over the cap, and then all of a sudden they're trading for $20 million a year quarterbacks. It's because the cap can be messed with on a year-to-year basis. You don't pay for the cap by rolling money over. You pay for the cap by signing people to longer contracts and distributing their bonuses. That's how you pay for the cap.
Well, the situation has evolved as the NFL has changed the rules, but also as the national economy has changed. The rules are changing, and the thing is under the old rules, the Saints were about to get cooked, and they were able to get the NFL to relax some of the rules for them. Understand that had they not made some of the voidable year rulings, the Saints would have died. But they did get it to relax, and then also the national inflation rate has in fact changed. It's different now. And these Ivy League guys believe that the inflation rate is going to stay high, and that it behooves the NFL front offices to make these investments. It's not necessarily
let me compliment on that. So kind of what you're saying is you assign your quarterback to a $50 million year this year, and then you've got $50 million the next year. But that $50 million the next year is worth less money than the $50 million
and easier
was.
to afford.
So your quarterbacks become
than it was 5 years ago.
Right.
What we're saying now is not the same math that it was 5 years ago.
Right. So as the contract ages, the quarterback hit on the salary cap, although technically the same, it's percentage wise is less year after year after year because the money value, the money itself is increasing. Okay. And the value of that money is decreasing.
Yes, that is real. The players are losing out when they sign a 5-year deal.
Absolutely.
And so you'll see that they'll be more favorably disposed to signing a 3-year deal in the future. And
they're going to go all Kirk Cousins on people, man. They're going to do the Kirk Cousins things, sign 3-year deals, fully guaranteed. I think he's signed 3 fully guaranteed contracts in his career. Short deals, fully guaranteed.
Yeah, and there's we're talking business now, but there's also a strategy where insurance companies need to get involved in this thing, saying that my client wants to have a 3-year deal where he could get a 5-year deal. So why don't you give us an insurance policy so that he can cover himself in case he gets injured? And that makes a lot of sense. So I think that's probably what they'll do. They'll sign 3-year deals, get an insurance company to cover the year 4 and 5 to some extent. And, everybody will, will make more money overall. But it's a changing economy. The economy is not the same as it was 5 years ago. So things that you thought were true, that Mike Brown maybe still thinks are true, are no longer true. And now it is easier to finance the future than it was 5 years ago.
Well, Elliot, we're up on it, man. We're looking at
All
almost
right.
50 minutes at this point. So
Okay, have we imparted enough wisdom? So
Yes.
anyway, the Browns are much closer to the Bengals than you might think. I still like the Bengals to finish first in the division, but I see the talent level as being much closer than it was last year. And by the way, we also should mention this. Let me leave you with this. Is that I think that the Browns fan base tends to be very pessimistic about the Browns, just in general. But if you look at what the betting lines are, the average NFL team, your team has a 1 in 32 chance of winning the Super Bowl because there are 32 teams, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
1 in 32. And right now, the Browns are a 1 in 35 shot to win the Super Bowl. So it's about average.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think that we're probably a little bit better than the odds makers are setting the bar at, because I think we're getting probably we're probably underrated by the public as a whole.
Yeah.
But I think we're probably closer to narrowing the gap between us and the Bengals than people think.
Yeah, I would happen to agree with that. All right. My last parting wisdom here is just go Browns.
Okay, go Browns.
Thank you for listening to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast. Please like, subscribe, and tell all your friends to give a listen. You can follow Joel on Twitter at The Left Guard and Elliot at The Village Elliot.